Okay, welcome, Laura Lozagal. Thank you for taking your time to talk to me about all things period.
Hey,
Hey, here we are. Periods, purpose, and perspective.
three Ps.
The three Ps. So we've jumped on here because I really want to ask you about your experience, partly to ask you about your experience in my confidence creation online workshop, and also to let that expand into talking about periods, because we love to talk about periods here at Creative Spirit. So my first question, if I may, Laura, maybe we should do some introductions. So who are you and how do you know me?
Who am I? Well, my name is Laura Edwards.
Yeah.
Laura Christina Edwards with a CH.
Nice. You search on Instagram, that's how you'll find her.
Yes. And I am a dance artist and performer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from the Wirral in the northwest of England, and I now live in Cambridge. I'm a freelance artist, work on different projects, collaborating with different people from different disciplines, and also making my own dance theatre work as well. And Kira and I, well, we've known each other since university.
Yeah, both performing art thespians.
Salford University. Although we didn't know each other in university. I just remember seeing you and thinking, wow, she's cool, man.
And I remember you thinking, whoa, she got moves, man. And then it was in our debut performance in a theatre. I don't know, debut. Anyway, we were in a theatre performance together, and that's where we really gelled.
It is, yes.
When two became one, so to speak.
Two became one.
Beautiful, what an intro. So I would now love to ask you a little bit about your experience on my confidence creation online masterclass, online workshop, and just to give the viewers out there a little bit of context. I ran a confidence creation online workshop a week and a half ago, something around, as part of my group coaching program, which is at the moment for yoga teachers, but I open up some of the workshops on themes that I think will be of interest to other women, especially women that work in the creative arts. So Laura joined the confidence creation masterclass. And I wanted her to come on here and talk because we had a call a couple of days after the workshop, and she just told me what I would consider the most incredible story and decision that she'd made. And yeah, I won't say too much about it, but let's dive in. Got your scuba gear on? So I would love to know what your experience, first of all, was in the workshop. And if you could just kind of give me a brief overview of how you experienced the workshop.
Yes. So the workshop was an amazing workshop about creating confidence, and I was drawn to this workshop because although I'm a performer and I'm very used to being on stage and very used to being in the spotlight, I do sometimes still suffer with feeling underconfident, and was something that I've been noticing coming into my 30th year now, and something that I really don't want to take any further with me. Yeah. So I saw that that you were hosting this workshop, and I was like, okay, this is perfect, because I need to nip this in the bud. I need to understand why I keep potentially dumbing myself down a little bit, I guess, when I'm trying to express who I am and what I do and my passions and everything. I seem to be in this I have a tendency of being in a bit of a lack mentality.
I love the way you caught that then. You went into the identification mode, and then you're like, I know, reroute. I'm doing that all the time at the moment. No, don't affirm it to the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so in order to kind of better inject that confidence into both your creative practice and also you as a person.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
You're really getting inspired then. Yeah. Just wanted to get confidence, man. Oh, anyway, that was a bit more. Back to you.
So my experience of the workshop, it was my experience was I found I was in this zone where there was a lot of information, and all of the information was, at the beginning of the workshop was kind of around the language of the word confidence, which was really interesting to have it broken down like that, and to really look at, okay, what does confidence mean, and understanding that it's about trust, and to be in full trust of your body and spirit, and this is something that can help you to cultivate confidence, to trust the process of life. So all of that kind of really resonated with me. And
can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
Because I think this phrase, trust the process, is thrown around the personal development wellness spaces a lot, for good reason. It's not a blow on it, but I just would love to get your take on what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean to you, trust the process? Because I think there's such value to it, but when it's just kind of thrown around, I think we can be I need to trust the process, but what does it actually mean for you?
I think for me, when I say to myself, okay, trust the process, it's usually to think the word resist, like to let go of resistance, and to be just
Mhm.
to be like open to whatever happens, and to not resist that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, totally.
so in terms of like, yeah, confidence, it's trusting the process of, I guess, trusting the process of you, like yourself, becoming
Mhm.
who you are, and because we're always developing and always changing, and it's we can't always be at the stage that we want to be. You know, we have to work our way to that point.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I guess that's what it means for me.
Yeah, yeah, nice. I think for me, the word allowing comes through. Like, I love that you said, you brought in the word resistance.
Yeah.
Because for me, I would kind of see trust as synonymous with allowing, like allowing the process, you know, like you said, allowing it to be as it is, allowing that changing, that evolving, that growing, to kind of unfold as it does, rather than be like, oh, I want to be over there,
Yeah.
when you're here, or yeah, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Deep. So I've got another question for you. Back to
Okay.
the workshop. I would love to know, and you've touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to know where you were before the workshop. So I know you've said part of the reason that you signed up was in order to kind of channel that into your creative practice, as you are somebody that performs and gets up in front of people, which of course requires confidence. What about on a personal level? Like, what was it that made you see the advertisement for this workshop and be like, okay, I need to get in that space? You know, you talked about nipping it in the bud, so I'm guessing this is something that you've been dealing with for a while. So where were you before? Paint us a picture. Think about the JML advert where it's all in grey and it's like raining. Like, oh, this is where I was before. But then I got this amazing product anyway.
Yes. Well, I was sat on my sofa, and I had just had quite an extensive conversation with my partner.
Very politically correct. Let's have a conversation.
Yes.
Love it.
And the conversation had kind of gone from, you know, it was like very, very stretched out, and it had gone to further places than it kind of needed to go to. And I felt I was on the sofa, and I was just like, oh, who am I? What am I doing? I just, you know, I'm in this situation where I don't have any work at the moment, because I moved here, and yeah, I'm free.
You don't have work at the moment.
I don't have work, so I was sat on the sofa, just like, you know, in this space of no work, of lack, of feeling not good enough. I just received another no from a job that an audition that I'd applied for. I didn't even get the audition, and I really like I put myself there at the audition, and I already had the job and the contract, and I didn't get the audition, so it was just another blow, really. And yeah, I just felt really, really shit. So and then I looked at my phone, and I saw creating confidence, and I was like, oh my god, this is wild. It's come at the perfect time. I need to feel more confident, or need to feel more confident, but just try and avoid getting, when I'm in these spaces between work, to be able to see the bigger picture, and to less, you know, not really zone in every time on, I'm not good enough, I haven't got this, I haven't got that.
Yeah, totally. So zoom out and see the bigger picture, like you said.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure that when I looked back, like in retrospect, I saw that I was in ovulation. I'm pretty sure I was at that moment, when I was pretty emotional. Yes. So then I got
Brilliant
workshop. I can't remember if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. That's the time you've been going for too long if you don't remember.
So on the sofa.
Yeah, feeling shit. That was the bottom line. Skin, sofa, shit, all the yeses. And I have so been there. So also, just for anyone that's watching, please recognize that this is one of my best friends. So when she says she's feeling shit and I laugh, like, we kind of have a disagreement, you know, that's okay. Not that I laugh when she's feeling shit, and that's okay, but more, I'm going to stop over explaining.
Yeah.
So I would now like to draw our attention to kind of your experience and impact from the workshop. And this is really the juice that I kind of wanted to draw out on this discussion.
Yeah.
So tell us about what impact the workshop had on you, and what you kind of integrated and took into your everyday life from the workshop.
The realization that to be fully confident, I have to be in full trust with who I am, and what that means is to be in full trust with my body. So that was like the biggest hit for me, because I felt a little bit. I work in a movement practice, dance theatre, so I'm very in tune with my bodily sensations when I'm moving. I'm quite alive to myself in terms of my emotions. But over many years, I've had a real disconnection with my menstrual cycle. And what I mean by that is I've had like quite a lot of gynecological issues. I've had to like keep going back to the doctor and asking like, is this normal, is this not normal? And like every time they've clarified that there's nothing wrong, but I've had continually just a bit of dis-ease, not disease but dis-ease in that area. And with being on the implant, being on the pill, and then getting on the copper coil, which doesn't have any hormones, my periods are very infrequent, and in fact on the coil lasting up to 12 days. So
I'm just gonna have to pause you there, because that is massive. Like, I mean, we all know, well, not we all know, but I'm sure a lot of people watching this, and I know, and you know, what a period entails. And I think, yeah, I have perspectives and beliefs that part of the dis-ease or the pain or the like burden we feel of periods is societal and kind of taught. However, there is an element of like, oof, you know, it takes some energy. Now to have 12 days, and that's of bleeding, can I just clarify?
Yeah. Not just fully the whole time. I mean, like from day 8 spotting, but still.
Yeah. And can you just, before you continue, just hold on to something, like describe how that feels, you know, maybe once or twice I can understand, well, this is unusual, but to have that as a kind of consistent experience, how was that to live with?
Really, really uncomfortable, because, you know, also my periods were really, really painful and really heavy. So at the beginning there was super strong, intense cramps that I'd never experienced before on the implant or on the combined pill.
And this was after getting copper coil?
Sorry?
The intense cramps were after getting your copper coil?
Yeah. So a couple of days before, I was like, sometimes had to like, you know, like really deep breath it out. And that was horrible. And then I would have like super heavy, so just felt really low energy, like, you know, have to go to the toilet every half an hour to change. And especially like trying to be more environmentally conscious and use an immune cup, that's like you know, quite a lot to deal with, like having to go to the bathroom and, you know, what we need to do with the immune cup, like it's a bit messy and stuff. So and then when you think, okay, now I'm ready for this to be over, like I'm ready to, you know, as a normal cycle after 4 or 5 days,
I'm good, I'm living the wisdom of the period, like I'm good for this.
Let's go. Yeah. But then it just like lingers, and for another 4 or 5 days, so, or even longer. And and I felt it wasn't right, you know. I thought this isn't right. We shouldn't have periods this long. And my body.
Can I just jump in again and say, side note, I'm so glad that you came to that recognition, because how frustrated, and I've had the same experience, when you're repeatedly going to doctors and being like, look, something's obviously not right, and they're like, oh, and it's like, no, I know something isn't right. So, you know, kind of an encouragement to really listen to that and follow that.
Yeah. Well, about a month before the workshop, one day I just said, I need to get this taken out. I don't know what I'm doing. It's half of my life spent on my period.
Whoa.
And also like thinking in terms of financially, like that's a lot of money I'm spending on. And because actually I've not been using the moon cup as regularly since I've had the coil. I've been reverting back to sanitary towels because it just feels more comfortable. Like,
yeah, totally. So that's actually a really valid point there, that you end up, because of those much longer periods, you're spending a lot more money than an average woman would, because you're bleeding for much longer. So yeah, that's an added thing that I wouldn't have even thought about, but that expense, absolutely.
Yeah, so one day I just thought, right, I need to get this taken out. And then I did a bit of research. I called the doctors and explained to them, and they suggested the Mirena coil, which has artificial hormones in it. And I asked them if it's okay for me to have a bit of time, you know, to think about it. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go straight from getting one taken out to getting another one put in. They, however, did advise that I do that because it's just easier. Like, they don't have to get me in another time. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll book it in. So I was booked in for this Mirena coil, and then coming back to the workshop, as we were kind of thinking about this, having full trust in your body, we were explaining like your kind of routine with taking your temperature and having a natural cycle, and that's allowing you to really connect to yourself on that deeper level. I just thought, oh no, this isn't what I want to do. I really do not want to begin another journey of disconnection to my body. And that's all it looked like at that point. It didn't there was no appeal anymore. Like, okay, I thought maybe the progesterone hormone, maybe that would reduce my periods to almost nothing, and in fact it can actually stop ovulation. And to me, I just thought, well, naturally we're supposed
to, terrifying.
We're supposed to have an ovulation, like,
hence why it happens, like.
So the thought of potentially stopping that and being pumped with these, you know, I say pumped, I don't know how much it can affect you, but the fact that it's like something that's been artificially created, and that's going to be in my system, and I don't have any control over that. I don't know how it's going to affect me in, so yeah, I just kind of came to this realization that I needed to just have it taken out and just really get back to my natural cycle and understanding my body.
Just want to get in touch with myself, man. I keep saying man, woman. Oh, I mean, you know how much of an advocate I am for the natural cycle, but it's so exciting that you had that realization. And I know that you said to me on the phone that you had, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had actually booked in an appointment for the Mirena coil, right?
Yeah.
The hormonal coil. And then you were like, that's one of it. I was like, oh, that's so dramatic. We have to do an interview about this. And then you're like, cancel the appointment. No. But that you actually decided to, in fact, have it removed instead of that appointment in order to get back in touch with yourself. And just as we picked up on there, ovulation is the oracle. Like, she's so important. Like, and I say this in the workshop, and I'll say this, anyone that knows me who've had a 5-minute conversation with me knows this. But like, ovulation is so important, regardless of wanting to start a family or not start a family, but just as a key marker of female health. And to see if things are in balance, if something needs tweaking, if something's in excess, deficient, etc. It's like a magical GPS system, inbuilt GPS system that lets us know where we're at. So I am celebrating the shit out of you.
Yeah, and also just as I was thinking then, going back to the workshop, like we talked, well, you talked, we explored a lot about
you talked for about 2 hours.
No, but being in connection with the formless, also, like, and relationship to spirit, like that's something that we can't really articulate. Like you were saying, if we say it's something, then it's not that.
Exactly.
And being a woman and the really strong like intuition that comes, like I definitely feel when I'm on my period, I'm like hyper, super, like sensitive to many things. And that like is
a raindrop falls 5 houses away and you're like, can you keep it down? No, totally.
And it's like, it's that which is, it's this like just something that's not tangible, like it just exists. And when we are more connected with our bodies, that's something we can access. But the less connection that we have, the less we can access that. And that was just so clear to me in the workshop. I was like, oh yeah, so I can take 2 routes. I can either go further into my intuition, or I can go, okay, I'm gonna go and like hide and cover it up and numb again in another way.
I'm having an epiphany right now, because this is something that a lot of my students talk to me about all the time. I'm pretty much exclusively working with women, and this is a theme that comes up all the time: intuition. And how do I, and this sometimes conflict between the head and the heart, and how do I know if it's my mind, or how do I know if it's my intuition? And you've just actually connected the dots, because I think I knew that I was saying that in a roundabout way, but actually you just mirrored it back to me. It's made so much more sense that actually the connection to the body and the connection to the menstrual cycle being one of those key elements for a woman is a practical, tangible way to access your intuition.
Yeah, for sure.
Love for sure. It's actually my workshop. I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay, so I would love to know, where are you now and how has your life been changed? But more specifically, what impact do you think this decision is going to have on your life? This decision to kind of remove that coil and just get in touch with your natural cycle and kind of see where your natural rhythm is at. How do you see that playing out?
So, yeah, just to clarify, I did then go and get the copper coil removed.
Okay.
Just for the listeners, because I don't know.
For clarity purposes.
I did go and get the copper coil removed, and just that was it. I didn't get the other one put in. And yeah, the nurse said that I was probably going to be in pain. I was probably going to...
I just thought, imagine if you were like, actually, Karen, just before we arranged this interview, I did actually go and get the Mirena back in. So I'm not really sure where to go with this.
I think we should stop.
Okay, sorry, continue.
So just to make a note of, the nurse was saying, oh, it's probably going to be painful and potentially there'll be blood, hopefully not too much, and you will have some cramps. And I was just like, okay, yeah, it's fine. But absolutely came out, no blood, no pain whatsoever. And for the rest of the day, I felt great. So that was a clear sign that I'd made the right decision. My body was actually relieved. So yes. So since then, well, it's not been so long. But...
it was actually just an hour ago, so I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's more of a kind of imagination exercise. And I will be checking back in with you to see, in 3 kind of 6 months, how it is going. But based on what you were saying before about your experience with the coil and how it did impact your periods and the pain and the length of them and the cost, the monetary cost that you were spending, what benefits do you think you might receive from taking that decision?
Well, the main benefit, like the overall is definitely just having control, being in control of, obviously I'm not in control of my cycle, but being given an opportunity to listen and to see my cycle and understand it and to track it will allow me to just, feel more at ease, knowing that, it's going to happen and it's going to be this amount of days. And yes, just having a normal, regular 5-6 day bleed is also going to benefit me in terms of like feeling more comfortable in my month. I feel like now, whereas in the past I would have to really like cut out, like I say, 10 to 12 days because I potentially could be bleeding on those days. And like
which in perspective is like you said, almost half of the month, like 12 days, like that's almost half of the month, that's half of the time, or like you said, half of your life. That's crazy.
Yeah. So now I hope that I'm sure I'll be able to plan things within those timeframes, and just get back to feeling happy and healthy and understanding my cycle, and also getting back into using my moon cup, which makes me morally feel better because it's much more environmentally friendly and sustainable.
Absolutely, my moon cup.
Yeah,
it took me a while, like, and I got one and I snipped the end off it too short, and then I couldn't get it and I was scratching myself, but then I went round 2 and the woman in the pharmacy gave me a lovely demonstration of how I did it, and since because you've got to like fold it in and then get it in and then let it go, so it suctions, vacuums. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the moon cup now. And also I actually really love, this is going to sound strange but I don't care, being like actually in closer contact with the blood, and just even that feels like a deeper connection to yourself, like not just necessarily in a towel and throwing it in the bin, but actually just getting a sense of like what's coming out of you, and like I think it just puts you literally physically more in touch with yourself. And I think that can only be a positive thing.
Yes. Definitely. And also being able to tracking my temperature, that's something I've never done before, which is quite exciting. And I feel like having more of a bodily, like visceral understanding of like, okay, my temperature, or
like
just this is basically
all the things,
all the stuff, biology, that's the word. Biology and chemistry, to understand that all. Anyway, all that stuff
we don't know
is going to help me to understand also like the emotional parts, like the moods and the fluctuations of the mind, and how that is also in flow with the cycle. Like
actually, if I can just circle you all the way back to the beginning where you were on the sofa skint and feeling shit, that feels like it perfectly ties in, because we do have these peaks and troughs throughout the month, and if you want to learn to kind of ride those waves, and you can predict them, and you got a much better chance of navigating them rather than always being kind of caught off guard and being smacked around in the wind. Because it's a bit of a running joke with me and a lot of my friends, but for a long time, like up until the last kind of 3 or 4 years, it's like a joke, like how do I get shocked every single month? Like I'm feeling, oh, so this is really 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 annoying me. Oh yeah, there's my period. And it used to catch me as a surprise every single month, and it's like, how did I forget from 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? But it's so easy to do when you're not like tracking or in the rhythm of it. It is just you feel random, and then you're always kind of chasing your tail.
And even though when I had the coil, like I was tracking my periods, but there was just the fact that they lingered like a bad thought. It was like, oh, just go, and then
when your period, so
and like there's definitely a connection, when you think that you finish a period and then you realize that you're actually still spotting, and it's going to bring your mood down. And it did bring my mood down, so I think now to hopefully have a regular period, I'm going to feel more in control of the emotional body.
Absolutely, the emotional body, the somatics. So just to draw us to a close today, Lozagal, thank you so much for being here and for diving into me. And I've already got loads of other ideas, because I want to talk just extensively about periods. We could do a whole session on the moon cup, whole session on discharge, etc., etc. But for now, I would love to kind of just close out with a kind of like call to action. If somebody's thinking about, doesn't necessarily need to be a workshop or my workshop for that instance, but if somebody's thinking about taking a step like that, like you did, you signed up to a workshop, or for me, I signed up to tons of courses, or like started to work with a mentor or whatever it is. What would you say if somebody's on the fence and thinking, oh yeah, I kind of want to work on that, but I'm not sure if this is the right thing for me? Like, what would you say to that person?
I would say if you're on the fence about something, then you've not had enough time. You need more time to like not even necessarily think about it, because what I tend to do is get into analytical Annie mode and analyze everything and try and like okay, it's great to write down pros and cons and understand like all of the like everything that comes along with making two different decisions, but when it comes to it, like you just need a bit of stillness and like yeah. So for me it was okay, the workshop came to me in a moment of like probably chaos, like it wasn't still. But then the stillness came in the workshop where it was like I was listening and I was taking in information, and then with what I'd already thought about, analysed, questioned, that's when the aha moment happened, and I was like, yeah, okay, this is the decision I need to make. So yeah, I think for me it's just having like, because I don't think in that moment I wasn't thinking about whether or not I was going to go and
it's not like you went for clarity.
It
on
was
that
in the subconscious.
Yeah, totally.
And it came within the you know, the form of being wanting to be a more confident person. So yeah, stillness, go for a walk in nature, listen to a podcast that is kind of on the same and listen to other people, other stories.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lazagal Queen. It's been a pleasure.
It has.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing your story so generously, and I am confident it will support and inspire different women at different stages, you know, whether it's that exact decision or other elements of what you said. But yeah, I think it's really powerful to have more conversations like this and kind of publicly to talk about the kind of nitty-gritty details. Yeah, and kind of provide inspiring thoughts and perspectives for somebody that's in this kind of same journey and process. So thank you. I wish you a beautiful evening, and thank you everyone for watching. This is going to be on YouTube, so if you haven't already, click like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, because we'll be back talking about discharge, moon cups, and all that loveliness. And yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Gal. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.